Welcome back to the channel Glitter Witches. Today I'm coming at you with another video about ethics and morals in witchcraft. I recently saw a video that Taya Kennedy produced about her process and her thoughts on ethics and witchcraft, and I thought it was so intriguing and I thought I'd lend my voice to the topic. So if you're interested in that kind of video, let's get started. Before I get into the video, just a quick heads up, Wine and Witchcraft is going to be celebrating 2 years on air, July 17th at 8 p.m. It's a Sunday, not today, but next Sunday. And we're going to have 6 special guests on the show. So please go over to the Wine and Witchcraft channel and subscribe. If we get to 300 subscribers, we're actually going to give away a t-shirt for free, absolutely free. And you can actually pick any item off the site. So go check that out. Subscribe to Wine and Witchcraft Live. Also subscribe, like, and comment here. Enough with all the bullshit. Let's get into it. So ethics and morals in witchcraft. Now, Taya Kennedy's video, she kind of talks more specifically really about ethics and witchcraft, and she illuminates 2 common tenets within a majority of people's minds that they hold close, like 2 ideas when it revolves around the topic of ethics and witchcraft, and that is harm none, the Wiccan read, and it, anything that you put out is going to come back to you threefold. And she illuminates her thought process on those tenets, whether those tenets should be held by practitioners or not, and kind of maybe why we hold those tenets so closely. For a long time in my own practice, I held the tenets of harm none, and everything that you do comes back to you threefold. And I think I held those so closely, and I think many practitioners in the beginning hold those tenets closely because, as I've said before, I think so many of us come to any sort of magical practice through the religion and the view of Wicca. And I think even as a lot of us kind of transition out of that, we hold on to these tenets so closely, so tightly. And I think it's because societally we're taught that there are rules and there are regulations to how spirituality, religion, any sort of practice has rules and regulations, right? And so for many years, I've held on to those things. And both of those tenets, harming none and the threefold law, I would say I didn't actually fully let go of until probably maybe 2 years ago. And I'm going to tell you why. The real reasons why I started to let go of these tenets was actually educating myself. Educating myself on where these ideas came from that I held so tightly. Even though I was subconsciously aware and even consciously aware that they were Wiccan ideals, I still felt rooted in those tenets. But upon educating myself on different traditions and different ways of doing things, I realized that I'm not going to hold myself to those tenets because there's no reason for me to. I'm not within this religion. I'm not within this organization or this group. So why am I confining my practice to those ideals? If that's not who I am, why am I living by those rules? I started educating myself in hoodoo and in American folk magic and realized that I found something that resonated with me. And that is, if I feel the working is justified, then I'm justified. Then it's right. Then it's good and it's set. Now, I do have to agree with many of the sentiments that Taya talked about in her video. I do believe that when you're doing any sort of magical working, you have to be aware of the situation as a whole. And I think I've talked about this before too. Magic can't just be a reactionary thing. Something happens, you just run to the altar or run to spell work. It is a thought process. And I think a lot of witchcraft, if you're a responsible practitioner, in my opinion, is about analyzing the situation and trying to better understand why the situation may even be a situation. And Taya talks about this in her video. If somebody's wronged you or they're doing something you don't like that's negatively impacting you, instead of just jumping, analyze the situation, get as much information as you can, and then that will kind of dictate hopefully dictate how you affect change in that situation. Another point that I like that Taya illuminated is, and alluded to in many ways, is I am of the belief that any magical working, whether it's protection, whether it's love, money, anything, right? Any sort of magical working, anything where you're moving energy, has the potential to harm somebody, whether that's your intention or not. We all know that we can be in the best mental state, the best spiritual state, have all the tools, right? For the working. We can have the best of the best. That doesn't guarantee a result, right? Even if somebody's coming to you for a working, or you feel justified, or you've analyzed the situation, none of us can really guarantee the outcome or how it's going to affect that person's life, even if in our mind it's a positive working. Magic is like water. It takes the easiest route. And that may not have the best or the most positive, manifestation in that person's life. So I love that she illuminated that, because we are in many ways, I think, throwing energy up in the air and giving it a directive. And we're just kind of hoping and believing and manifesting that it's going to show in the way that we want. But realistically, we don't know. And if we were going to live by the tenement, am I a tenant? If we're going to live by the rule of harm none, do what you will, or whatever it is, would we be able to practice magic ethically, morally? To say that I'm not going to do anything to harm anybody, purposefully or unintentionally, how would we ethically practice magic? I mean, that's a real deep thought process there. I don't know how you could, because that would mean that you could have a guarantee. You could have 100% guarantee, certainty that everything that you're doing is going to manifest exactly the way that you want. And even when we analyze a situation for ourselves or for somebody else, there's still only so much we can know about a situation, right? And there have been many times where I am about to hex a bitch or do some dirty ass shit, and I decide, you know what? I just don't feel it's right. But there are a lot of times that I don't feel that way, and I feel like, you know what? You fucked with me, and I feel like this is what I need to do, and this is what I'm going to do, and that's what's going to happen. But regardless of the type of working, I kind of do think that it's arrogant to think that you can practice magic and it have absolutely no negative effect on anybody, or not even have the possibility of having a negative effect on somebody. And Teo illuminated this idea as well in her video about doing a spell to help somebody get a job. Maybe that working does manifest and that job does happen, but what if somebody else is more qualified? What if I'm doing a working to keep my spouse in our marriage, or a love spell, but really the spouse deserves to be with somebody that's going to make them happy, or I deserve to be with someone that's going to make me happy, or whatever the situation may be. You don't know what other strings you're cutting to get what you want manifested. The other tenet that Taya talks about in her video is the threefold rule and threefold law, whatever we want to call it. It's one that I do struggle with, specifically because I do believe that, I don't know that I believe that what you put out comes back to you, but I think energy attracts energy, right? And when we're doing any sort of magical working, and when I say magical working, it doesn't have to be witchcraft. It could be any sort of magical working. It could be prayer. It could be any of that, in my view. I think when you're putting out a certain frequency, right, you start attracting those, you can attract those things into your own life, whether that's threefold or not. I don't know that I necessarily believe that. And that's why I think it's very important to keep yourself correct. Keep your ass in check, because if all you're doing are these, negative things, I don't even know what the real term is for it anymore, because I don't think about it in that way. I think you will start to attract things into your life that may not be the best for you. I do think that there are ways to protect yourself, and that's a whole nother video. But that goes into being responsible, right? Being a responsible practitioner. And with that responsibility, I don't think that every situation, every instance in your life calls for a magical working. And I think if you are using magic for every problem in your life, you're going to start to see problems manifesting in all areas of your life. Not everything needs a magical fix. A lot of things can be fixed, in a mundane way. Not everything calls for a whole blown out fucking ritual. And I think sometimes as practitioners, we want magic to always be the answer. And when we have that mindset, I think that's where we start to really get into some problems. And because all of that is one of the reasons why I just call myself a witch. Not that labels are even important, but I don't classify myself as a hoodoo practitioner or any of that. I don't say eclectic. I don't say anything. I'm a witch. I don't have any sort of even religious title that I give myself. I guess if I had to, I would say I was pagan because I do believe in other gods. But at the same time, the view on deity is a whole kind of conversation to be had. So that's why I call myself a witch, because I feel like it does give me that freedom to just do what the fuck I want. And I think, just overall, when it comes to ethics, is all about responsibility. And we all have different views on morality. I think that all is affected by the society we grow up in, the house that we grow up in, the lifestyle that we live. And because of all of those factors is why it's important to analyze a situation before we just jump into magic to resolve it. And that is today's video. So I am going to link Taya's video either here, somewhere. Look for it. It's a fabulous video. I would love to hear your thoughts and ideas about ethics and morality in witchcraft and how you practice and your view on harm none and the threefold law. I think it's a really good conversation to be had right now. And thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you next Sunday. Have a good one, Glitter Witches. Bye.